Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new to this channel, consider hitting the subscribe button. Today only, if you hit that subscribe button, free of charge. I promise, I'll wait. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button. You'll see, free of charge. All right, all kidding aside. So today we are going to be taking a look at, from the great state of Texas, this is going to be the Balcones True Blue Cask Strength Single Barrel Corn Whiskey. Yes, I know it's a mouthful. So what exactly is this? So again, proof-wise on this one, this is coming in at 129 proof or 64.5% ABV. It is really the mash bill undisclosed. It is a corn whiskey. More than likely, it's going to be a high corn mash bill on that. It is age stated. And again, here's going to be something very interesting for a Texas whiskey. This says on the back of the bottle, aged 48 months, 4 years. This is aged in used charred oak barrels. And as you'll see, when I pick up this glass, or as you can see in the bottle, that color on that whiskey, 48 months in a used charred oak barrel, that's just a sign of what that heat will absolutely do to a whiskey in the state of Texas. MSRP on this one's going to be $63.99, and this comes from our friends over at Don's Liquor and Wine out of California. Link in the description below if you're interested in purchasing this bottle. All right, let's go ahead and we'll get into today's review. So again, this is the Balcones True Blue Cask Strength Single Barrel Corn Whiskey. Color-wise, as you can see, that is about as dark of a whiskey that you're going to get. That is a dark, deep mahogany type of color. So very rich looking, exactly what you'd like to see in most or all whiskeys. You're not going to get that. Texas is very, very well known for having that kind of color on a whiskey. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into the nose. So right away, I get this like rich, like roasted corn on the cob aspect. Dark, heavy fruits, more of like a plum, cherry, something along those lines. More of a dark or a dried fruit. There's that intenseness that's there to it. Rich brown sugars, molasses. It smells thick, you know, rich, creamy. And there's definitely that Texas funk. There's this musty, deep, heavy wood note that's there as well. Yeah, definite like heavy char, roasted, you know, barrel, things along those lines. Nice vanilla, like more of like a creme brulee. Even a touch of like a maple syrup on that as well, if you kind of dive into that a little bit more. And this is one thing I generally pick up from whiskeys out of Texas. There's this like a cola aspect. There's something that's very effervescent about it, but you get that kind of that cola note that you'd smell like a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi, something along those lines. Maybe even a touch of like a root beer. There's like an herbal aspect that's there. And a more of a burnt orange. So if you kind of toasted or hit an orange or orange peel with like a flame, you get a little bit more of that kind of like richness or that intense orange note. Rich like caramel apple pie. There's like that pastry note that's there, but a little bit of like a caramel apple on it as well. Maybe even like a dark, like semi-sweet chocolate. It's not like super dominant, like sweet, but there is that chocolate aspect to it, but it's more of like again, like that semi-sweet or like a baker's chocolate. And definitely some of like those leathers, tobaccos, there's this drying aspect to it. There's this kind of like that earthiness that's there on this. So, all right, more importantly, let's see how this bad boy is going to taste. Cheers. Yeah, so immediately again, like I got on the nose, the first thing you get hit with is that corn aspect. It's more of like a roasted, like corn on the cob. Again, that musty or that funky oak profile that you get from Texas whiskeys. If you've ever had anything that has like any bit of age to it, you'll know what I mean in terms of that funkiness. It's really a profile that is nothing like anything else. It's specific to Texas in terms of getting that funkiness that's on that. It's hard to necessarily describe it. It's almost like a musty, or like some people, excuse me, may confuse it as like that dusty profile. It's not quite that. It really has its own profile, but it's more of like an intense oak presence that's there, or like a charred wood. Really nice kind of like baking spice on it as well, like maybe an allspice, to be honest. Heavy cinnamon. And again, more of those like espressos, very rich. It's one of those whiskeys that gives the impression of richness. There's the heavy espresso or coffee notes that are there. Again, more of that kind of baker's chocolate, more semi-sweet than anything, not a lot of sweetness that's there. Again, those cola notes really kind of continue to linger or pop up like I was getting on the nose before. But definitely still a little bit of that vanilla note. You do pick up some of that is being kind of transferred from the barrel into the whiskey. So definitely some of those vanilla notes are there as well. A little bit of a drying aspect to it, which you'd expect. Again, here, as the finish begins to develop on this one, more of those leathers, the tobaccos, again, that oak or that musty or funky oak presence really starts to kind of shine or come through even more. Slight bit of that kind of pastry note that was there a bit on the nose before. Definitely some burnt sugars. There's just this overall like richness. It just has its own flavor profile. So if you're into those rich, bold, intense, earthy type of whiskeys, you know, this corn whiskey, this True Blue, you know, cask strength single barrel from Don's, I think they did a good job in terms of selecting, you know, what may be a really nice representation of a pretty good aged corn whiskey, you know, out of the state of Texas. So I think they've done a really nice job with this. Yeah, just those lingering, you know, oak, that funky char barrel. It's almost like a bit of a smoky aspect. Something that I think maybe the Hawk would appreciate, I would say, with something like this, with those roasted notes, the corn on the cob definitely still present. That's one thing that's been really consistent throughout, is that roasted corn on the cob, heavy oaks, heavy char flavor on this one. Again, some of those like semi-sweet chocolates, heavier dark fruits. It's a little muted. It's more of that kind of like the dry dark fruits. It's not super intense, but those are definitely there. Still some of those like vanillas, a little bit of that pastry, maybe that like caramel apple note on it. So, I mean, overall, it's a nice whiskey. If you've had and you can relate to a Texas whiskey, you'll truly understand what 48 months in a barrel, these are used barrels at that, but you'll understand what that amount of time will do to a whiskey from the state of Texas. So, you know, overall, I think for what it represents, you know, coming from, you know, Texas and it being from, you know, Balcones, I think they've done a really nice job with this. I'll be very interested to hear your thoughts. Have you had this specific bottling? Maybe not this one specifically. If you have, definitely leave a comment below. This one, just a reference, is barrel number 17308, and it was bottled on 5/20 of 21. So you go back to, you know, 4 years prior to that, and was bottled in, you know, or barreled in 2017. So if you've had this one specifically, let me know in the comments. Or if you've just had this single barrel cask strength of the True Blue, let me know. Let me know your thoughts below on that. Let me know your thoughts on Texas whiskeys overall as well. So Want to say thank you so much for tuning into another one of my reviews. Greatly appreciate it. And remember, today only, if you hit that subscribe button, free of charge. I promise, God's honest truth. So hit that subscribe button. Also, if you'd like to follow me, you can on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of those places at My Bourbon Journey. If you'd like to support the channel, you can through my Patreon page, which I'll have linked in the description below. Also allows you to become part of the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club. So thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, remember, it's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers.